Welcome to another episode of Roundel Live, and today we are looking at one of the most anticipated figures of the year. It's rates season. So today saw, well, actually the whole few weeks, but today saw Douglas announce theirs, because by our own rules, Douglas has to announce the rate on the 31st of January. And that's what we did today. We had a special council sitting today. And our rate, as I am sure you have all heard on the radio already, is 8.76% increase, which no increase is great, but it is a lot lower than what the figure we looked at initially when we started this discussion. Because the rate, is not something we set on the day, or we just randomly, pick up a number. It's something that is being worked on over many, many months by the different committees and by everyone involved. And yes, it's an increase, but 8.76, I think we look. So we have the list here with the ones that have announced so far. Ramsey, so far the lowest, with 4.9% increase. Well done, the North. Then we have Douglas next with 8.76, followed by Port Erin with 9%. Then Braddon, 11.74, and then Castletown just puts in the knockout punch with 14%.
14%. I mean, when you look at these rate settings sessions, so for Douglas, are you just covering costs, or is this going to include new stuff for your parishioners, should we say?
It's a mixture. It includes the whole budget. So in today's times, people always wonder, hey, my tax hasn't gone up, or my income hasn't gone up. Why are my rates going up? What's going on here? And the taxes haven't gone up. What's going on here? Rates include a lot of costs. They're primarily driven by costs. So these are things, if we could, we would keep them at no increase. We don't enjoy doing this. But the costs have gone up. So, for example, staff pay is decided by central government. There was a 6% increase. We have to pay it. Energy prices gone up massively. Nothing we can do. We have to pay it. And then we are very proud that we've managed to keep frontline services pretty much unaffected. So, yeah, we have cut a lot of stuff. So, some plans for the future are not happening in the immediate future, like new skate park for Nobles.
So hang on, just on that. So the Nobles skate park, there was 250k set aside for that last year, or maybe more. Yeah. But that was incorporated into a rate rise last year, and now we're saying, well, we're going to cut that. So somehow 250k has appeared in the budget, and yet you've still managed to have a huge increase.
I don't think was it in last year?
I'm pretty sure it was.
I'm not totally sure. It was certainly because I'm on the regeneration committee and we looked at that, and I was one of the ones voting it down for this year. So it may have been in last year and we killed it off again this year, much probably due to the dismay of skaters, and I'm sorry about that. But we just couldn't justify the cost. So we've done that with a lot of projects.
But you're looking at, say, an average household, say, in Douglas. What is the average annual rates bill? Is it £1,000? I don't know how you'd break that down or how you'd know that. But you're talking about a huge increase, because there's a lot of pain in paying the rates bill. It's the most unglamorous, outgoing that you've got, is to have your bins emptied now twice a month, if you like.
Still collecting the same volume, but yes.
But, to actually justify this crazy system, how we've got, local authorities sitting side by side. So there you mentioned Castletown at 14%. And then up the road at Maloo, what will they be pitching in? I don't know yet, maybe.
I mean, Braddon at 11.74, and we all know why Braddon has this increase, the Braj Mahal.
The Braj Mahal. So I'm telling you,
community centre.
We're going to get a new sports centre just a few miles from the NSC, is that right?
It's crazy. I mean, no offence to, the lovely people in Braddon. When I go next to a municipal meeting, please don't throw chocolates at me or something. But it looks beautiful. I looked at the pictures at the, we have the municipal meeting once a month is in Braddon and the thing. So you walk past the pictures on the wall. It looks beautiful. It's going to be a great facility. But yeah, in this day and age, in this climate, can you really justify this sort of expenditure?
But then you could argue that maybe Braddon run a tighter ship, and they say, well, hang on, the NSC has been shut for years because they couldn't, organise some simple slides and what have you. And maybe they've just taken that ownership and taken that opportunity to go, right, we've got some money in the bank because they've got all those commercial premises, so why not spend it?
Why not get central government to pay for it?
Well, these are issues and arguments, that have plagued the Isle of Man. It's funny today, though. Let's just sort of turn the clock back to this morning when you went into Douglas Council. So, meanwhile, this is what I can't understand. Just up the road, up Tynwald Hill, you've got 24 MHKs getting paid vast amounts of money. And when you look at what was on the agenda for that day and their sitting, well, the outcomes to, you, me and everyone else are invisible. You can't really see them. Yet what you're doing, free of charge, you're having to take time off work,
yes,
and you're coming in as volunteers, and you're making the most significant changes to people's lives that are going to happen almost instantaneously. This is an absolute
farce. To their direct lives. Yeah.
This is a
MHKs
farce.
make decisions as well.
But you say the MHKs make the decision. You try and think in the last decade of any decision that's come out of the House of Keys that's affecting you or your friends or family or people that you know.
Taxes, health system, allowances, roads. There's a lot of things that affect them, but theirs is a broader spectrum. You feel it less.
You
feel it less.
You just reeled off a catalogue of failure. The only thing that's come out is that you can't release a sky lantern. That is the only bit of legislation that perhaps makes you slightly safer. But when you mention about roads and you mention about health, and we'll talk about health at another time, and you're talking about these things, education and taxes, are we any better off?
I hope so. I don't know.
Well, in the last decade?
Well, I mean, we still have a good quality of life. Are we really better off compared to where? Compared to back then? Compared to the UK?
We don't have to compare ourselves with anyone. We're looking at our current governance and how it's set up, and we'll talk about health later. But when you look at things and the decisions that you're making as volunteer councillors who aren't getting paid compared to what's being made up the hill, it's such a paradox. It's incredible, really, that the Isle of Man is being turned round this way. So you guys are the fall guys. And the guys on the hill...
That we are very often. But
the guys of the hill are getting away with it scot-free, and they're going to have the little MLC elections very soon, where it's all going to be clubby, friendly, vote in your mates, and nothing will happen. The status quo will continue.
See, that's the question with the MLCs. Do we really need them? And I would say no.
Well, the purpose of the MLC is to provide scrutiny, isn't it? Okay, so say in the last 10 years, can we just have one instance where there has been scrutiny, where there has been issues identified and dealt with? Because remember, we had the Howard Quayle quote, saying, don't rock the boat. Remember that? Don't rock the boat. And that absolutely resonated. But, please, if anyone out there can just come up with any example of where, hang on, an MLC in particular can hang their hat on this and they made a dramatic change, because I'm still searching.
But you know what? I think there's a chance when we get the new MLCs / old MLCs, if some are re-elected in. What do you think the chances are of one of them mysteriously becoming a minister very soon?
Well, that is possible, isn't it? And
because it's possible legally, yes.
It is, and I think it has happened before. I seem to remember something in the past along those lines. But when you look at the state of play at the moment, say in the health service, where we've got Laurie Hooper, and he can only spend 50% of his time dealing with Manx care and so forth, which is the biggest problem on the Isle of Man. There's no question about it. It's the crisis that's in the health centre and health service and what have you. And then his other responsibility at the Department of Enterprise, which to many is equally as important. How can one MHK, one minister, divert his time both ways?
You can't. It's silly.
So what you're saying is...
we're in a mess.
So what you're saying is we've been absent without a minister responsible for health since November, and we're just going to shuffle along maybe until the election for the MLCs, and somehow maybe a door opens.
I can see that happening.
Someone's going to get elevated.
If it happens, you heard it here first. I can see that happening.
But is this in the public interest? I mean, the public want direct action.
The public doesn't even have any idea who most of the MLCs are, what they did, or that they actually exist. Ask anyone. Go down Strand Street. Ask them, name all the MLCs. Not a single person will be able to, I bet you. Unless you catch the person who probably runs their office.
But the thing
nothing
is,
against the individuals. It's just,
But the thing is that they're not elected by the public. So why on earth can we have consideration that they would have political influence and input on something so big as our healthcare?
Yeah, it's wrong. They shouldn't be there.
And they've not been voted in. It's absolutely
unlike
nuts,
your
folks.
lovely Douglas and everywhere else councillors. I mean, the island has got overgoverned. We've been over this before, but Douglas is the biggest. Well, we're the only city, but we're the biggest authority, local authority. And there is, if you look for the budget book and if you look at what we do, actually staff count has gone down in town hall recently. We talked about it today. I think we're 19 less on the head count than we were a couple of years ago. So, if you see all the functions that we cover, you're right. There is a lot that affects people's daily lives immediately. And the decisions we make in the 3-4 different committees that we have, they have a direct impact, on your bins, on your pavements. So, for example, wonderful example how central and local government are clashing. And we talked about this today, and it was queried in council in public, so I can talk about it. There's this thing called the Seized Assets Fund, which is a central government thing. So if you're a criminal and you get done and the courts seize your money, that's where it goes, and it can be used for good purposes.
And it's a healthy fund.
Yes, and you would think that giving money for a CCTV system, so it's operational again on Douglas Promenade, is something where the Seized Assets Fund would be well suited for because it's, proceeds of crime being used to prevent crime. Yeah, except they told us we can't have the grant we wanted because it's not for you. I was like, we're literally doing your job down here, CCTV, crime, hello. And no, according to the AG's office, it's not happening. So this was queried in council today, and there will be some, stern emails going back and forth to ask why, because it makes no sense to us. Because it shows you that if you have this national and local government, you create all sorts of issues. Why do we have two? It's crazy.
Well, I'm not seeing a huge crime wave on Douglas Promenade. Maybe the state of the walkway, maybe the overzealous business prevention officers, maybe how luxury people get their luxury cars with free parking and free charging. I think those are the biggest crimes on Douglas Promenade. Maybe the state of the lamps, were they struck by lightning? Or
I've actually
were they
requested
duds?
details. No, I've requested details on what exactly happened.
I want to see a lightning strike. I want to see where the box got blown out.
I literally asked for the exact details of what happened because I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just want to understand what happened.
That prom is doomed, isn't it? It is doomed.
Haunted,
and this is Roundel Live. It's coming at you from every angle.
Yes. So we haven't got all the rates in yet.
Well, I can't wait. I can't wait. But it's very interesting. I'd like to know a bit more about Castletown. I think if you look on Twitter, there's some very interesting observations about port area rates and what the cash is being used for there. It is a glamping site, a campsite. There's about 170 grand. Is that correct? And hang on, we've already got a privateer up the road who's got his own campsite. And there's, I don't know, two factions in competition with each other. So there's a lot to look into. And if you get time, you've got, say, is it 18 local authorities? I lose track. But that's a lot of reading to keep in touch of who is doing what. But no, thank you, Frank. Anyway, you took a day off work, so you had a day's pay missed, is it?
Well, I didn't because I have an understanding employer and I simply didn't work, more hours after. But yeah, we don't actually. Some people actually don't know that there is no special law that allows councillors to attend meetings. You need an employer's understanding. And I know some colleagues who have to take time off every time they do it. So they pay double.
So think about that. You've got councillors who are making the biggest decisions of the year, what they're going to vote on, and they have to take a day off work. So that's a fifth of your week's pay. That's gone. And you're just going to get a kick in for whatever you do. I tell you what, why would you bother? Why would you bother being a councillor? You want to just get elected and be further up the road. And what are we talking about on the agenda paper for House of Keys? Just check it out online and see how in touch they are with you, the electorate, the people that are paying the bills.
Well, we'll be in town hall all the time. So council meetings are public. Stop by. See what we do.
Oh, I think we need a rest after that, Frank.
Yes, I do.
Bye-bye.
See ya.